first things first, can you kind of just like explain the cycle of a TV writer, as in like how often are you writing? Do you have a set schedule?
Of course. So, as a TV writer, I think the expectation for any of us is that if we're fortunate, we will be employed for a few months during the year. The pay is hopefully good during those few months, but very few TV shows go all year round. So it is expected that the paychecks we get just from that small amount of work has to last us for a very long time. So it is a very brutal. It is a very brutal and strenuous few weeks, months when we are on those shows. But again, that is our livelihood for most of the year.
All right. And then, kind of outside of those show times, so when like what do you do when there isn't, a show going on? Not in terms of like right now in the strike, but just,
Right.
we'll say the summer season if you're working, say, like on a syndicated show.
Right. Well, I am a regular at several coffee shops. I'm a regular at several coffee shops in my neighborhood because I go there for hours every day, really getting the money's worth out of my $5 coffee, sitting there and writing. It's tough. Oftentimes with writing, you have to force yourself to be productive and to get ahead of the game. So when I'm not staffed on a TV show, I am working hard on the next thing, building up my portfolio in hopes that when an opportunity comes around, I'm ready for it.
All right. Um, and then, for those times that you are on a show, like how is the pay constructed? Is it, based off hours, days?
Right. So we get paid by the week. So frankly, if you break down the hourly wage, even though our week pay is pretty good, we're working a lot of hours. It is not ultimately that much money per hour. So it takes a lot to force yourself to be working at all hours, to constantly be on call. Again, I think people will look at a paycheck of a writer and say that's pretty good. These guys have got it made. But we are often working at all hours of the day. So it is a lot of work for what we hope is a fair amount of pay, but that's what these strikes are about, making sure that we get a fair amount of pay.
All right. And then now kind of going into some of the issues with the strike. Pay is one
Yeah,
of them. But another one of the big issues that people have been talking about has been like the threat of artificial intelligence and that.
right.
Um, can you talk to me a little bit about why you think this is one of those big issues and sticking points for the WGA?
Of course. Well, first of all, I want to go back to what you said about the pay issue, because in addition to that paycheck we get while we're working on a show, the vast majority of a writer's salary comes from residuals checks, meaning that when the show is replayed, we get a modest paycheck in the mail, and that is to keep us above water, being able to afford rent and groceries throughout the year when we're not actively in a writer's room. Here's what has changed since the last time the writers went on strike. Now, most people get their content from streaming services like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. And oftentimes, those services don't have to reveal how many streams, how many views every episode of a show gets. That is often hidden information. And therefore, they are not required to pay us those residual payments in the same way that we have historically gotten from network TV shows, from writers who work on sitcoms. If you work on Seinfeld, say, and that episode of Seinfeld gets rerun over and over and over again, then that is sustaining you for a while. You write for a Netflix show, it could be the number one streamed, show on Netflix, and they don't have to tell you that, and they don't have to tell you how many streams it's getting, and therefore they are not required to pay you those residuals that we have always been entitled to, and that have made up the vast majority of ways that we pay our rent and get our groceries and all that. Now, the other question you asked about is AI. That is a big threat to us. I think this is not unique to writers. This is unique to almost every job, is that chat GPT, the stuff that feels to many like it almost popped up overnight, can be used to replace a human element. And it's never going to be as good. The consumers are going to pay the price when they have shows that are written by a computer instead of human beings. But I think that major studios believe they can cut corners, and instead of having a writer's room full of people, have a robot write that one episode and then just have a few human beings sort out the details. And that's going to put a ton of people out of work. It's also ethically questionable, and you're not going to get as good a product. So I think this is better for writers in terms of pay, but it's better for everyone. We want as high quality television and movies and entertainment as people deserve.
Yeah. And then you mentioned AI kind of being ethically questionable. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So oftentimes, and I want to make something clear here. I am not in any sort of leadership position for the Writers Guild. I am just speaking as one out of work writer, but this is something I and many of my fellow brothers and sisters on the picket line believe strongly in, especially when where does that information come from when ChatGPT spits it out? It comes from data that's been input into it. It comes from scripts that have been written by human beings. So that's a concern, that they are taking the work that humans have done and pretty much stealing it out from under us and no longer needing the humans for that. But it didn't come out of thin air. It came from scripts that were written by people that are not getting compensated properly for them when it goes into creating, new artificial data.
Okay, cool. Well, not cool, but I appreciate that insight. Um, and then sort of looking at what's been going on right now, can you tell me what you've been doing for the last 2.5 months during this strike?
uh, for the past 2.5 months during the strike. And thank you for telling me how long it's been, because I can assure you time blurs together. It has been a lot of days out in 90+ degree heat, picketing, carrying a sign, walking miles of circles around Netflix and Disney and Paramount and Amazon and all those buildings, letting people know that they are depriving us of our livelihoods. And so it's a lot of work to picket and protest. It's a lot of uncertainty. It's a lot of fear, having gone that long without paychecks. But it's also, in a lot of ways, empowering. And as I'm sure many folks know, the actors, SAG-AFTRA, has now gone on strike as well. So I think that has given us a much needed shot in the arm. Additional brothers and sisters joining us on the line, fighting for what's right. But I'm not going to lie, it's been a tough few months, both the lack of pay, the lack of certainty, and the 90+ degree heat.
Yeah, no, we've definitely been kind of seeing, especially some of those weather issues down in LA. It's that for sure is going to be really stressful to do, even, without all of the other uncertainty that's going on. Um, and then you did sort of mention the addition of the SAG-AFTRA strike that kind of just started. Can you talk to me a little bit about what you've been seeing on the picket lines of the addition of Screen Actors Guild?
Yeah, so that is tons more people, obviously. I think, and again, I'm probably going to butcher these numbers, but it's something like 10,000 writers, but 160,000 members of SAG-AFTRA. So you can definitely notice it. Also, actors are, of course, much more attractive than us writers, so you get more eyes on the issue. And jokes aside, actors are the face of entertainment. They are more visible, so people see that and they understand it. With that, though, comes some messaging issues, because I think a lot of people think of actors as glitzy celebrities, the Matt Damons and Margot Robbies of the world that are already multimillionaires. The vast majority of actors and the vast majority of writers are not rich. They're not famous. They are literally struggling to be in the middle class here. So we just want to be able to support ourselves. And that kinship is the same with writers and actors. But again, I want to stress that when you think about a writer fighting for more, greater pay, this is not about Mel Brooks making a few more $1 million, or Robert Downey Jr. Getting to be in more blockbuster films. This is about background actors that are just starting up, people who want to be series regulars and get those residuals checks. Because with actors, it's a lot of the same things that we're facing. They're not getting the residuals that they're entitled to. And AI is also a threat that you could film something with one single actor and use that person's face over and over and over again in different episodes of a show and not have to compensate that actor more than the one single time you hired them for. And that's not right.
For sure. Um, and then sort of, looking ahead, the strike is for both like the current writers and actors and people, and it's also sort of for, those future generations. How do you think that this strike is going to be impacting the next generation of writers?
I think a lot of the benefits that I have enjoyed as a writer are things that came out of the strike that happened in 2007 and 2008. And so I owe a lot of my career to those who, went on strike and came before me. And I think a lot of that is going to be the same, that things we may not feel for a while are things that we need to establish right now, knowing that years down the line, issues about residuals and AI and other things are really going to ramp up. And we're going to be thankful that we unfortunately had to make this tough sacrifice now, but that in the long run, it will sustain this career for a little longer. And again, this is the type of thing that workers all over the country are experiencing. And it just, as actors and writers and as being a little more visible, I think we can hopefully shed some light on labor issues that workers from every profession can relate to.
Okay. And then kind of my last question for you. So part of the reason that we reached out to you is because of the Iowa connection that you
Of
have.
course.
So can you talk to me a little bit about how you expect this strike to impact? Like we talked a little bit about like the next generation. I'm also thinking about the writers workshop at the University of Iowa. And so can you talk to me a little bit about, what you see as the strike having impact on even like for states like Iowa that are kind of a lot more removed from the big productions?
Right. I mean, speaking only personally, I grew up in Des Moines and I am a big fan of Des Moines. But I knew nothing about entertainment or LA or how any of that worked. And being able to move out here took a major leap of faith, and it took a certain trust in a system and a union, and the fact that workers get compensated a certain way. And if we didn't have those safeguards in place, I would not have felt as comfortable taking a chance and moving out here and, being confident that there would be people fighting for me and having my back out here in the Writers Guild. So my concern is that if we don't do this and if we don't get the things that we're asking for, it's not going to be a livable profession. And the only people who can afford to be writers are those who come from wealthy families and have connections to LA. You're not going to find middle class folks like myself who have no connection being able to take that risk out here. So my hope is that we continue to make writing and acting and any sort of entertainment sustainable, so that graduate students from the University of Iowa and high schoolers from my alma mater, Roosevelt, and others across the state are able to take that chance and trust that that if they move out here, they will get compensated a fair wage. And look, there's going to be some level of risk no matter what. I can assure you that even if writers get every single thing that we're asking for, there's still a good chance that I will be living in this shared house with roommates for a little while. It's not going to make me or anyone else I know rich overnight. But these are basic things that I hope other Iowans get to enjoy in the future because of those of us on the picket line right now.
Okay. And then my last kind of smaller question for you, Raman, is there anything that I didn't ask or you didn't get the opportunity to say that you think it's important that I know?
Uh, I want to say that as dark a time as it has been, the fact that it's really grinding LA's economy to a halt right now, these strikes, there really are some silver linings. It has brought out the best in people. I go to a bar to do some writing, and the guy comes up and says, "Oh, you're a writer. I'm gonna give you a discount because of the strike." And and what you're doing. Or I went on a date last week, and the woman I was out with insisted on taking the tab because she knew I couldn't afford too much. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I did let her do that. I want to make it clear that as broke as I am because of the strike, it's not that I can't afford a haircut. This is my own decision. So don't blame the writer's strike on that. But no, I think that for as tough as this has been, it's brought out the good in a lot of people, and it makes me and hopefully others very proud to have taken up this profession.